Hello and welcome to Career Prep. My name is Matt Studebaker. I'm a lecturer at the Woodbury School of Business at Utah Valley University. And today we're going to talk about being aware of or be aware of social media. And so before I get going, let's make sure to like and subscribe, especially for my students, so that way you have something to access later on after the class is ended and it's saved into your history under your likes. All right. And then you'll catch any of my future content related to career discussions. Let's kind of dive into it. So protected rights within the First Amendment. So most people don't know what the First Amendment is, even though we live in the United States, or for those of us that live in the United States. But essentially, this is the First Amendment. So Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble or and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay. The important part for this discussion for this class in regards to social media is the free speech component. Okay, so free speech in the workplace. So this means you can be fired for things you say and do on social media or online. And the answer is yes and no. It just depends on where you work. If you work for a private company or organization, then the answer is yes, you can absolutely be fired for free speech. But if you work for the government, it's a little bit grayer. You mostly can't be. And so there are exceptions. I'll mention them briefly in this one, but private company speech, is freedom of speech protected within a private company? No, for the most part. What speech is protected? So if you have if there's an unlawful or unsafe conduct occurring at your work, this typically falls under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So that would be example of one protected speech. So you can speak about the unsafe workplace practices, as well as maybe terms and conditions of employment are things that you can talk about. So what speech isn't protected? Sharing confidential information, okay, or trade secrets, kind of right? Political views, especially controversial ones, absolutely not. Political speech is one of the most protected speeches in the United States, and yet it's definitely not one protected in the workplace because it's a private company. Rude jokes, comments, especially if it involves protected classes under the Civil Rights Act, Title VII, you can be fired for that. Profanity, posting about firearms. Firearms are completely legal in the United States, right? As long as you can legally acquire them. But companies don't have to like that. Public company speech. So there's the most recent Supreme Court case was 2006. I'm not going to dive into this. Just know that, read this if you do work for a government position or federal position of some kind, and you can read through this, and it just gets really complicated, but these are essentially the parameters for what we count for that. So civil rights, it's important to know so you understand your civil rights. So Civil Rights Act of 1964, it has been amended and updated to include other ones. So you cannot be discriminated for the following things. And so you see the ones in the different years that they were updated. So like race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, and disability. Individual states can have further protections. So for example, in Utah, they outlawed discrimination for housing employment for people based off of their sexual orientation. And that was in 2015. Workplace harassment, and this is why speech definitely isn't protected, because you could say things there's no such thing as in the United States as hate speech legally, but in the workplace you can create a hostile work environment. And that's just essentially any situation where involving anyone where there's unwelcome conduct that renders the workplace or atmosphere intimidating, hostile, or offensive, and so it just violates the law if it's abusive to the affected person or persons, and is severe and pervasive. So whether you're working for the government or private entity, if you engage in speech that's either discriminatory or harassing in any fashion, you're probably going to get fired and you might get sued. So don't do that. So right to work and at will. And I want to kind of talk about this because most people get these wrong. Right to work law guarantees that no person is, because they get confused, but right to work essentially is that you're not compelled to join a labor union. And so most states are this way. And so you can see here the blue states are those that are right to work states. So you cannot be compelled to join a union or pay union fees. And so that's the only really big difference between that. But at will state is what everybody seems to confuse at will. So this means that an employer can terminate any person for any reason, so long as it's not illegal. Illegal would be something under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act for those things that I mentioned, like age and race and those different protected classes. And so There are exceptions, and so you can see here that all states have different parameters in place, but all states do have an at-will work environment. So, like, maybe there's a public policy, or they have like covenant of good faith, or like implied contract exemption. So these could be so like if you have a contract, then they need to fulfill the contract. Or if they say, all right, well, we'll give you this, you'll be able to get promoted if you work 17 months, and then you'll get promoted at 18, and they fire you at like 17 months and 20 days. That would be an example of bad, not in good faith. There's also additional exceptions, maybe like public sector employees, unionized jobs, contract workers, discrimination, protected employment. That would be things like FMLA and whistleblowing and so forth. It just depends on where you live. As far as social media, there's turnoffs that social media can have when they're hiring. So, like, for example, 83% of respondents said that references towards illegal drugs could hurt your consideration. I'm kind of surprised this isn't higher. 70% do not appreciate sexual posts. The 30% that remain are named Michael Scott. That's the Office reference. 66% indicated that profanity in posts reflected poorly, as well as like 66 held poor spelling and grammar against candidates when they were hiring. Because you're showing me what you wanted me to see on your resume and cover letter. I want to see what you're not wanting me to see, or what you don't think I'm going to be looking at, and that's your social media pages. How's your grammar there? 52% do not like posts on guns, okay, even though it's legal to do it. Same with 44% posts on alcohol. It's legal to drink alcohol, but they just don't like to see it. And 20% saw that political posts hurt your hiring chances, because you could really mesh poorly with the culture of that company depending on their political orientation. So we're going to look briefly at some posts that get people fired. We may not go through all of them. And these are some really bad examples, but they're examples nonetheless. Okay, so this is a former CBS vice president. This is their response to, this is a response they made to victims of the Las Vegas shooting that left 59 people dead and 500 people injured. They said, well, if they wouldn't do anything when children are murdered, I have no hope that these repugs will ever do the right thing. I'm actually not even sympathetic, because country fans, most music fans, often are Republican gun toters. Again, 60 people died and 500 people were injured. And they're like, I'm not even like that sympathetic about it. Yeah, they were fired. Former sociology university professor. This was their response to the victims of the Hurricane Harvey that killed 107 people and displaced over 30,000 people. And they said, I don't believe in instant karma. This kind of feels like it for Texas, but hopefully this will help them realize the GOP doesn't care about them. So they're trying to score political points, and they were fired for that post. And that was at a public university. So this is a government position. They were fired for that post. This is a former daycare worker. This is a Snapchat that they made of a worker at a daycare. And this, they're aiming the middle finger towards the kids they're supposed to be watching and taken care of. This person actually got investigated by the police for potential abuse, but there's no charges as of yet from the police, but they are investigating it. And naturally, they were fired, because you wouldn't want your kids working there or being there while that person's working. This is a former CNN correspondent. So last time I checked, CNN did not like President Trump. However, they still fired this person over the post to their private Twitter account. Okay. Obviously, I'm not going to repeat word for word. This piece of crap is not just an embarrassing American stain on the presidency, it's embarrassment of humankind. Okay, again, CNN, not fans of President Trump, fired him. Former zoo employee said, "Sup, y'all? I work serving these rude white blank people." Okay, probably not a good idea to disenfranchise your customers, but this is exactly what this customer did, regardless if it was true or not. Right. This is a really infamous one. So this was a former communications director. This went mega viral. Unfortunately, this ruined her life. Okay, she had to change her name, because you can't, just lots of stuff. Okay, but obviously she said, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white. And even though she was joking, it was very poor taste, and it cost her job. And there's lots and lots of examples of people just saying and doing stupid things on social media that got people fired. And so just be smart. This is my biggest advisement. Just be smart. Don't do stupid things. Okay. You're adults now. It's time to move on, and just know that it's just not worth it to score political points on Facebook or to post these funny things that could get you fired. Okay. Just like an unwanted tattoo, it's ugly to look at, and it's a pain to get rid of when it's been put online. And that's it with my video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you later.